When the Pharisees heard that Jesus had arrived, they came and started to argue with him. Testing him, they demanded that he show them miraculous sign from heaven to prove his authority. When he heard this, he sighed deeply in his spirit and said, "Why do these people keep demanding a miraculous sign? I tell you the truth, I will not give this generation any such sign." So he got back into the boat and left them and crossed to the other side of the lake. So this is an interesting section, isn't it? Little section here. And I want to dig into this with some meditative questions and meditative prompts with you. So we're going to look at, we're going to look at verse 12 first starting. It says, this is what it says. When he heard this, he sighed deeply in his spirit. Isn't that interesting, the wording that Mark uses there when he says he sighed deeply in his spirit? I mean, I'm going to assume that wasn't by accident when he added the deeply in his spirit. And there are lots of ways that we can sigh, I think, in life. And it makes me wonder if he's saying that he sighed the deeply in his spirit part, that it's not just a sigh of sort of transient or superficial emotion. It's obviously a deep emotion. And that makes me think that maybe this emotion is coming from his deepest motivations, the most core drives that he has inside of himself, which we all have, right? And I mean, when I think about Jesus, I imagine that his most core emotions or drives, really would be a better way to say that, desires, things that were his greatest values, would be like connecting people with God and his love, that bringing that love of God into people. I think that was really at the core of his existence. And the other one, I think, related to that, another one would be that he was here to unravel and crush Satan and to destroy him. And really, because what Satan wants for us is he wants us to have spiritual death, ultimately separation from God. And Jesus was so, I think, in his deepest spirit, that his conviction was to keep that from happening, to do everything in his power, and he had all the power to keep that from happening. I think those were his, and if I were to try to put words, but I think some of Jesus' deepest motivations were. So what's interesting to me then is to stop and think about my own deepest motivations, because my own deepest motivations, in their natural state are not usually the same as what Jesus's were. We're working on that. But part of that journey is to identify what are those deepest motivations? What are the things that drive me? And, what is it that when things don't go the way that you wanted, or things aren't happening that you want in your life, what is it that makes you sigh deeply in your spirit, so to speak? That sense of, frustration. I don't even know what the word for that is. So, we're going to take a meditative moment here. And I also want to say, this is like a journey. This isn't something that you, a one and done conversation that you have with yourself and God. It's something that you can think about quite a bit over time. We keep revisiting it. And I want to read you a little bit from some of the work of Father Keating, I believe his name was. This is on the Colored Carnations website. This information is under Welcoming Prayer if you want to read more about it. But as part of his welcoming prayer, he says, "I let go of my desire for power and control. I let go of my desire for affection, esteem, approval, and pleasure. I let go of my desire for survival and security." And I think that if you look at any one of those, you may start to see some hints of what your own internal drives and motivations are, the things that you really long for in life that drive you almost without you even knowing it usually. So he talks about power and control, affection, esteem, approval, and pleasure, survival and security. And of course, there are others too, but those are a great place to kind of start your thinking about it. So I am going to invite you now to pause the video and pray or journal and think a little bit more about your own deepest motivations. You know, what is the why beneath the things that you do, and especially beneath the things in life that kind of drive you in a way that's not the way that Jesus would have you go. So go ahead and pause the video, and when you're done journaling or praying, you can rejoin for the next step. Welcome back. Next, I would invite you to think about, what if your deepest motivations were really satisfied, instead of us trying to satisfy them through our own human efforts and human strength. What if they were actually satisfied by the love of Jesus? What if that was your greatest desire and motivation and satisfaction? You know, the push to control, to move towards fulfilling what hidden or underlying desires we have with human satisfaction is really an illusion anyways. We were made by an infinite God, and we have infinite desire, really, which only can be satisfied by God. So to the efforts that we subconsciously push forward to satisfy our deepest desires, in the end aren't going to be satisfying, you know, no matter what we are subconsciously telling ourselves. So now I would invite you just to let your mind really imagine, dream, explore, what would it look like if your deepest desires were for Jesus' love and were satisfied by that. Just imagine that life and let yourself dream. So go ahead and pause the video and journal and pray, and you can join back when you're ready. Well, my significance does not come from pursuing and accomplishing my own plans and agenda, but from your love for me and power and authority in my life. I praise you, Jesus.